But I'm going to say this: it's amazing how people can screw up a lobster roll.
Right.
Talk about that, because, like,
yeah, guys, I didn't grow up there. Tell me what is a perfect lobster roll?
Well, just like a perfect example is like this guy just came to my house and he was staying in my cabin and he's like, dude, he's from Brazil and he was like some chefy chef. And he's like, oh, I saw your cookbook and I saw the page about lobster rolls. He's like, but I made it with homemade mayonnaise and I did this and I did that. And I wanted to walk over there and be like, dude, you missed the entire point of lobster. Like, you didn't even read the whole description on how to make the right lobster roll. Like, you have to use Hellman's mayonnaise. Don't try and get fancy and make your own. So anyways, it was that. And I grew up actually with a different bun than they use in a lot of the New York shops. They have the J.J. Nissen bun is like the ones that everyone's like, that's the New England lobster roll bun. But actually the one that I grew up with was the Pepperidge Farm top loader potato bun, and that has more sugar in it. And I will tell you, I don't care how many people can tell you the J.J. Nissen bun is right, but it is the wrong bun because the lobster is rich, very rich, and there's something about the high fructose corn syrup and the mayonnaise and the buttery goodness and that lobster, and like, you just don't want to fuck with it. It's just perfect. It's perfect. So and also it has to be made like right on the spot. You toast that bun. The lobster has to be it's a little, for me, it has to be a little over room temperature, which is actually what they call a Connecticut style. Right. And you drizzle the butter over it. But anyways, a lobster roll sucks if you eat it like 5 minutes after it's come off that,
because it gets soggy.
Exactly. So it was the perfect formula for doing an underground thing because it was in my apartment. I had 100% control over it. And so Rich came, he had this thing, and all of a sudden there was literally a line out the front of my house.
Well, you were like a drug pusher, but you were pushing lobster rolls.
The drug thing happened accidentally because I had been doing it for almost a year, and I hadn't been ratted out. No one knew. No one who shouldn't know about it knew about it. Only the people who should. So it was working.
Right.
And then somebody used Squarespace, and they're like, I'm the mayor of Squarespace. And they like used a pin drop on my location. And that screwed me up. And I didn't understand that the city of New York was actually taking it really seriously. And they sent me a cease. No. How did it go down? So first I got a phone. My bell rung. I came upstairs. And the entire freaking fire department in Greenpoint was there, all suited up. And I'm like, and they knew me back from my Hurricane Hopeful days. And the guy is just like, he's like, Ben. He's like, how long did you think it was going to take us to find you? And I was like, I'm like, yo, come on, man. I'm like, leave me alone. And he's like, we can't. We're getting complaints. We've been trying to like follow this. And like, it's not about the illegal lobster roll business. It's the fact that you have told people that you're using propane to boil the lobsters. He's like, I need to come down and see your operation. I had 25 propane tanks in my basement when the guys came down there. They came down and they're like, okay, we need to tell you something. You have to get rid of these right now. If my fire chief sees this, like, you're going to jail, man. You could blow up an entire city block with what's down here, which I didn't know. I'd never even crossed my mind. So
I'm just making lobster rolls.
Yeah. So then the next thing that happens is I get a cease and desist order from the board, the commissioner of the Board of Health, that says, if you continue, it says, to Benjamin F.W. Sargent, DBA, the Lobster Pusher Man, spelled out like Lobster Pusher Man, because they were like, this guy is operating under an alias. And if we go after him as Benjamin Sargent, he's going to be like, I don't, what are you talking about? I'm the Lobster Pusher Man, or vice versa. So at the bottom of the letter, it was 2 pages. I still have it. So at the bottom of the letter, it said, if you do not cease and desist, you're going to jail. Not like you're subject to fines or whatever, like you're going to jail. And I'm like, what? Dude, this is so crazy. And at this time, I got a letter from a guy who was hilarious, who I'm still friends with, who was in jail. He had been put in jail for 10 years for selling drugs in Williamsburg. And he's like, and he wrote me from prison. And he's like, yo, Dr.Klaw. He's like, this is the craziest shit. Like when they locked me up, like heroin was the drug on the street. He's like, now you're telling me it's lobster? He's like, man, times have changed. And I'm like, and he's out of prison now, whatever. But so then I'm going to fast forward a little, but I come up one day. Keep in mind, like my landlord, my Polish landlord, Frank, knew nothing about what was going on. I had somehow kept it all under wraps. And people at that time really loved the fact that they were getting to go into my apartment, which looked like Captain Ahab on like acid. And they liked it because I was open till like 3 a.m. So they would come all wasted from wherever, and they'd be like, yo, I got this guy, and they'd text me, and then I'd be like, okay, I wouldn't give them my address. I'd give them an address across the street. So they'd actually be waiting at that address. And then I'd check them out and I'd bring them over to my place.
But this is where it gets weird, dude, because like it wasn't just like, you know, Ben in his trucker hat and his t-shirt. You were in costume. Like the
costume happened again because it had to.
This was like where it like strayed into performance art because like it got wacky. Like you were like a character making lobster rolls and delivering them illegally all over Brooklyn.
All right. So the costume, I don't actually know why the costume thing happened, but I got fully shut down because I came up one day and my landlord was being interviewed by News 11 or News 5 or something. They had a satellite truck parked out front of my tiny little apartment, and they're interviewing Frank Badowski. And they're like, Mr. Badowski, how do you feel about the illicit lobster roll business in your basement? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, and I'm like, yo, Frank, we need to talk. I'm literally standing there. News 11 is right there. He's there feeling so awkward, not knowing what's going on. And Frank and I have a great relationship. And Frank said to me, what you're doing is, we love it. We think it's great, but like, you can't do it in the apartment anymore. And I was like, oh, that's it. Because the whole thing was everyone wanted to see this zany place and watch the lobster roll being made. And I thought, that's the end of it. I'm done. And then I don't know who gave me the idea, but someone was like, no, now it just got good because now you have to take your operation out into the street. So, and Frank said, you can still cook in here. I don't mind if you do all your cooking in the basement. You just can't be selling to people on the street in my house because if something happens and they fall down the stairs, it's on me. So at that point, it really did become a drug deal. It looked like a drug, so much so that I had guys that like got scared and threw their like kind of got nervous and dropped their money and like ran because I think they thought in the bag where it really was just the lobster roll. I think they were like, oh shit, all this time I thought this was lobster rolls, but it's drugs. And the guy was like, I'm out of here. And he freaked and he just like took off. And I wanted to be like, no, man, it's really lobster. Like, it's all good. So
well, I want to paint a picture for our listeners. Okay. So all right, we've got 25 tanks of propane in a basement. Yeah. We've got the fire department showing up. We've got like what looks like a drug deal going down, and you are now in costume, dressed. You've got like gold chains. You've got like
it was a giant gold lobster claw.
You have a giant gold lobster claw. You've got like a Celtics jersey on. You've got sunglasses. You've got like a beard going on, and then you even took it to another creative level where you were now delivering the lobster rolls all over Brooklyn on a motorcycle that you had turned into a lobster.
Yeah, the motorcycle thing that didn't work so well. That thing was short lived. That was a GoFundMe project gone horribly wrong. But the thing of it, like going down on the street corner, actually worked really, really well. And for anyone who's going to open up a business like a real restaurant, I would say don't do it. Like go out there, cook whatever you do best, and do it this way or some version of it. Because if all your friends have your phone number anyways, like that's the base of your business. And if you can't get those 100 people in New York or wherever you are to love what you're doing, then like just don't open a restaurant. It's not going to work.
Right.
Like they have to be like, this is dope. This shit is so good. And if they don't, or they don't come back, it's never going to work. But I kind of felt like after all these years of trying so hard with signage and advertising and to make my thing work, like all of a sudden it was working with no effort. And I'm like, why? Well, you've got a great product and this funky thing that's different and weird going on around it. And it was like, that was the missing element that I had always been struggling with. And the fact that it was like illegal, obviously people loved. And it went for as long as it possibly could until it just had to shut it down. And also, dude, Chase Bank. I went into Chase. This is literally the only time that I've ever made like real money in my life. I was making a lot of money. I was making 200 lobster rolls a night at $20 a pop. So that was every single night. So I would go to Chase, which is stupid, but I would go to Chase and then I would like put the 20s in. And this woman, my I don't know, advisor was like, she's like, Mr. Sargent, do you mind if I ask you what you do for a living? And I'm like, it's not what you think. I know what you're thinking. I was like, I just make sandwiches. And she's like, no, this is unbelievable. And I was like, look, and I told her the whole story. And she's like, well, you just got Chase Bank on Manhattan Avenue as your new customer. She's like, that's 25 people who are hungry for lobster roll. So yeah, man, it was nuts.
Yeah. So listen, I want to talk about this book. So this is my favorite. This is one of my favorite cookbooks, by the way. Yeah. It's called The Catch, Seed to Table Recipes, Stories and Secrets. And if anybody out there is a seafood lover or just absolutely loves to cook, or you like to kind of like read about like just nautical stories and interesting facts and stuff like that, you got to get this book because The Catch is Ben's book, his cookbook. And it's amazing because it reads kind of like a travel diary. And it reads a little bit like your personal history. And I want you to talk about it because I've bought, I don't know, like maybe like 5 copies of it and given it out to my friends because it's spectacular. And I'll tell you, I make the striped bass chowder every year. Awesome. Fantastic.
Well, I think it's a great book. I will tell you that an embarrassing moment that I had with my now wife is when we first started dating, I brought her to a store where I knew they sold my cookbook and I was going to like sort of, glance over and be like, oh, that's crazy. Like, look, it's my cookbook and like show her that I had a cookbook. I had a whole plan and we came and we walked in and this was in Vermont. And we walk in and there's a stack in their sales department. It's like 50% off. It's like 100 of them. And they're
you know what? It's a fantastic book.
Five for $3. No, so but each one of those stories is about the fish and about my sort of coming to know the fish and then to use the fish. It was awesome writing the book. It was hard. It was really, really tough, but it was super cool to get to tell those stories. And it was even the photographs and stuff. Like it was everything I've ever wanted to do in my life.
It's well done.
Can we back up a little bit though? How did you decide to make your own cookbook? Like, who?
I got
a publisher, the whole thing. Like,
I got approached by a publisher